If you're smart, everyone will hire me because I'm the best. I am the best guru. And that's the end of the question. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever is on your mind, be it bodybuilding related, non-bodybuilding related, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, of course, the Olympia now 3 weeks and exactly 2 days away. Dave, I have to ask, just again, considering this is going to be your first Olympia since 2018, what are you most excited about? Obviously, you still have 3 weeks and we have a lot of programming in between, a lot of preview segments in between. But when you think about you being on site at the Olympia, obviously you're going to have the interaction with the fans. You're going to get to meet the Olympia athletes face to face. You're going to see the action. But what excites you the most about being there in Orlando in 3 weeks?
Hold on. It's my there we go. It's my first vacation, I think, in who knows how long. So I'll be actually leaving the house without the kids, and just staying in a hotel room, doing the old selfish lifestyle that I did, only for a couple days. But that's what I'm looking forward to most. But obviously, I always love going to these shows because of the adrenaline that you get built up. And you know what? You can't explain it to anyone unless you've experienced it. Like if you've competed before and you don't compete now, and when you go watch these shows and you see the best guys in the world up on that stage, it's like a thrilling adrenaline rush because you know what they're feeling, you know what they're going through. You might have been up there yourself at one point, and even if you weren't at that high a level, you might have been at a national level on the amateur ranks like I was. And it just brings back memories. I remember last night I was just on YouTube, and for some reason the movie Rocky came up. I guess you can watch Rocky for free on YouTube. And I put it on, and I was just kind of scanning through my favorite parts, and it was like I watched it for the first time, but it wasn't. It's like I knew what was going to happen, but I hadn't seen it for so long, and it's still it's my favorite movie when people ask me, and I tell people it still emotionally moved me the same way. Even though I've seen it countless times over the last, 30 years it's been around or whatever. And I feel the same way about bodybuilding. I get the same emotional response when I watch these guys up on stage battling it out, to win the Olympia title, win $400,000, be crowned Mr. Olympia. And you can't really, it's an undefinable thing. You have to kind of experience it. And that's why I tell people, especially bodybuilders who are getting into this sport, you got to go to the Olympia. You got to go to the Arnold. If that's what you want to do with the next 10 plus years of your life, you got to go to the big shows and you got to network with people, but you got to be there and enjoy the energy of it. You don't get that same energy when you watch it on live stream. I can critique a show from live stream because I've been doing this a very long time, but you don't get the energy of the theater, of the audience, bodybuilders, what they're projecting to you guys. And so that's what I've missed most. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
So again, that Olympia weekend in 3 weeks, of course, we're going to be live on site, wall-to-wall coverage. Dave's going to be there. Chris Aceto is going to be there. We'll see. I think John Romano might be there as well. And of course, we are we're going to see who's going to be in our in-studio crew as well. So as soon as a Friday night show, Saturday night show lets out, we're going to have a live studio show. So we have our immediate reaction. I believe King Kamali, if he's not going to be there, he's going to be a part of the coverage as well. So a lot of fun having him. But again, over the course of the next 3 weeks, we're going to be doing our preview segment. So Iron Debates, we're going to be doing some athlete interviews as well. So a lot in store for you. And again, we thank our friends over at Muscle Tech for sponsoring our coverage of the 2023 Olympia. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Question. I am 60 years old. Now my off season, I've gained 31 pounds over my normal competition weight. I'm not fat, but I do feel pain in my body. In your opinion, do you think you'll be better at this age to gain a little less weight off season and stay closer to competition weight?
You know, I when I gained back a lot of the weight after my cardiac surgery, I think I went from, I was as low as like 180, which is, I don't think I've been that low since like, you know, right when I started bodybuilding. And I got back up to 200, 205 pretty quickly, you know, once I started training. And I was like huffing and puffing. I looked big and I was, you know, I could see a difference in I could feel my arms when I'm like, you know, soaping myself up in the shower. But I was like, whew, you know, and what you don't realize is if you gain 20 pounds in, you know, 3, 4, 5 weeks time, which is absolutely possible, you know, when you're having a muscle memory response, you know, going on, it's like strapping a 20-pound weight to your back. It wears you down. So, you know, at 60 years old, probably not a great idea to be carrying an extra 35 pounds over what you would consider a contest weight or a lean weight. It's probably not worth getting that heavy. Once again, I noticed my blood pressure went up when I gained that weight initially. And it's funny because before I went in for my cardiac surgery, and I've told the story before, I was on an ACE inhibitor for years, you know, Ramipril, pretty mild blood pressure med, but, you know, gets the job done. And I tell people it's very reliable. After the surgery, I couldn't take the blood pressure medication. My blood pressure was just too low. And I you know, they say, well, you know, after the surgery, sometimes I think what it was, I lost so much weight that I didn't have, you know, a lot, you know, blood pressure is related to weight, you know, and I don't care if it's good weight, meaning muscle weight, or if it's fat weight. When you have more of a strain on your body and your heart has to pump, you know, harder to get the blood to a bigger surface area, your blood pressure could theoretically go up. So I think once I started gaining back the weight, my blood pressure crept up to the point where I was kind of borderline. And I mean, when I tell you, when I was 180, it was so low. If I took a blood pressure med, that I felt like I was going to pass out. And all of a sudden, I checked my blood pressure one day, and I'm like, holy mackerel, it's like borderline high. And I had to go back on my blood pressure medication. But I think it was a weight-related thing. So imagine now if I take my weight at 205 and I add 30 pounds to that or 25 pounds to that, you know, my blood pressure is probably going to go a lot higher, you know, and there's more strain on the body, on the joints. Obviously, he's feeling pain in his joints and achiness. And so, you know, there has to be a sweet spot. I think for me, it's, you know, I might be looking at another 5 to 10 pounds the most I might want to put on, and that's it. I think if I start hitting 220, I'm going to start, you know, I'm going to feel the difference. So everyone's at a different stage and what feels right for them. But if you're feeling what you're explaining, it sounds like your body just doesn't want to carry that much weight around. And a lot of times, you know, when you gain that much weight, a lot of it's water weight, and water weight is really uncomfortable to carry around because it's really not functional. It might make you strong in the gym, but it's not functional in terms of like flexibility and stuff like that. It kind of kills that. And fluid retention definitely hurts blood pressure, definitely raises it. So, you know, you might want to consider downsizing a little bit.
Second question, again, these questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Excuse me. Your thoughts on berberine for blood sugar control and insulin sensitivity?
I think I went through this already last week or maybe the week before that.
It's been fairly recent, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's on the berberine. Berberine's got a lot of good data, and I think that's why a lot of people look to it. And as far as blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, because a lot of people they don't eat enough fish. Let's face it. They eat a lot of, pro-inflammatory foods. They have a history of poor blood sugar control as they get older in their family. And they see their blood pressures creep up. I'm talking about the average person, not a bodybuilder. And for those people, a lot of times they'll prescribe them metformin. Metformin's job basically is to stop the liver from releasing its glucose and raising blood sugar, because the body obviously can't produce enough, for some reason the body's insulin is not working adequately enough to keep blood sugars under control. Now, if you take things that help your body lower, blood sugars by either, once again, suppressing liver output of glucose or I guess you could say, increasing insulin sensitivity, which is basically saying increasing insulin receptors on the outside of all our cells, theoretically, the insulin that we're producing can work better. Problem I have when we talk about bodybuilding is that bodybuilders have really good insulin sensitivity. Why? Because we're lean, we eat really good, we exercise. Everything that increases insulin sensitivity, we kind of do already. Most guys taking a lot of like fish oil, whether you use my Omega Lyse formula or not. Fish oil is really good insulin sensitizer. We take our multivitamins that have, chromium in it and all that stuff. So we have great insulin sensitivity, yet some of us still run high blood sugars. And while some of it's genetically linked, a lot of it has to do with the fact that our bodies just stop producing enough insulin at some point. So, the average person doesn't eat 6 times a day, but the average bodybuilder does, which right off the bat gives us a much higher insulin requirement. Now, as we get older, your body just doesn't produce as much insulin. We know that. Okay. Likewise, you might have taken GH your whole life. You might be on GH right now, which actually works antagonistically to insulin. And so we have a lot of strikes against us. And so, age is usually the main strike. And then what happens is you just take your blood sugar one day and it's high. You're waking up at 115 or 120. You should be waking up under 90 fasting blood sugar. And really taking berberine and taking, all these cinnamon and all these insulin sensitizers probably won't do that much, because the problem is not the insulin sensitivity. It's you just not producing enough insulin. And the only way to fix that would be to take more insulin. And the insulin you would want to take would be a long-acting insulin. So you're putting more insulin into your body, long-acting. The body now doesn't have to produce as much of its own, and now it doesn't get overwhelmed, and the blood sugars come down, and you're waking up with normal fasting blood sugars, because now your body, the insulin you're taking is taking up the slack of what your body can't produce, and then the body has enough available now naturally to deal with the rest of the blood sugar elevations. And obviously, watching your sugar intake and stuff like that's helpful too. But at the end of the day, if you take enough exogenous, long-acting insulin, you shouldn't really have a problem. And so that's usually my solution in bodybuilders. In normal people who come to me and say, who are overweight and they have, poor blood sugars in the morning, a lot of those people, I do try to get them to drop weight, start eating better, take the right nutritional supplements. Maybe berberine might be an answer for them. But at the end of the day, if all that stuff doesn't fix the fasting blood sugars, insulin becomes, what the next thing you want to put in there. The problem is that doctors don't like to prescribe it because they think people are morons, which, 50% of people might be. And they think that they're not going to want to take a shot, twice a day, and they're not responsible enough to measure it properly. I think people are really smart, actually. And I think if you show them what to do and you explain to them why they're doing it, they'll rise to the occasion, because no one wants to be sick if they can do something to avoid it, especially people in our business who are really into our health. We'll do anything. We like to take shots, almost, our bodybuilders. So, don't think because, this guy looks like a meathead, I'm not going to suggest insulin for him. it's just stupid. I mean, insulin is the right solution, especially for athletes who are running high blood sugars.
Let's go to our Facebook and Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Facebook, just look up RX Muscle. On Instagram, official_RX Muscle. Right now on the channel, all new episode of the After Hours podcast. And in my estimation, and the show is about 2 years old now, this was the funniest episode of all time. So he basically had a surprise appearance. Lee Priest, for those that don't know, is in the country. He was he did an appearance at Apollon Gym in New Jersey over the weekend, a big all-star seminar. So between him, Lee Priest, Greg Valentino, they've had an entire weekend full of fun. We have a couple of their videos up on the channel from over the weekend. One of them includes Greg Valentino feeding Lee Priest allegedly 40-year-old pasta that he also fed to Lee Haney. Of course, yes, for those wondering, Lee Haney stayed and dined at Greg Valentino's house way back in the day.
1987.
1987. There you go. Exactly. It's written on the box that he's feeding to Lee Priest pasta from 1987. But anyway, they crashed the show yesterday. Jimmy, Lee, and Greg. It was absolutely hilarious. So if you haven't already done so, go check it out. So that kind of transitions perfectly into our first question. So of course, Dave, we mentioned the fact that you are going to be at the Olympia. Do we know if any of the whack packers are going to be at the Olympia? And if so, Dora Facts Adidia wants to know if we would have an in-person episode of After Hours at the Olympia.
You know, that's not a bad idea, actually, but the problem is Lee won't be there, which is, I wish he could have timed that Apollon Gym, appearance with the Olympia, within a week or two, so he could have stayed, but he won't be there. I think Mr. G is going. I think
Romano was on the fence last check.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if he's going to show up. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be enough. Greg will never get Greg there. So probably won't be After Hours there. We might be able to do some of the other shows. We definitely won't be able to do After Hours. I wouldn't be surprised if we did a Heavy Muscle Radio episode there. Probably right after the show, more than likely, and on Saturday night at 4 a.m. But aside from that, I don't think we're going to be able to pull it off. We used to do really good pregame show. We should probably do a live pregame show this, and if we can set it up on like Thursday night or something like that, with you, me, and Chris and John Hanson or
really
something
good
like
idea.
that. We will you have the tripod. Well, we got Kaz there.
We got Kaz, our videographer.
We got our video guy there. We can film it, and I don't know if the Wi-Fi is not fast enough, we might not be able to live stream it. But we can certainly upload it afterwards, and so maybe we'll set that up in one of the hotel rooms, or a little makeshift studio, and on the couch or something like that, and we'll do a live pregame show, because I think that those were always really, really enjoyed. I know in the past. So.
You know what we could do? I'm just thinking out loud right now. Obviously, Thursday night is the Meet the Olympians.
Right.
We could just set up there. I mean, we could figure out, some sort of.
Yeah, sometimes it's just very noisy.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll have stick mics.
Yeah. I'll have to ask Dan Solomon if he's up.
Yeah. If they can make some arrangement, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Question from Michael Dusa, someone that we've been. Yeah, exactly. We've been in touch with quite some time. He does a great job. I will give a plug. So he runs a company called the Fozzy Company. If you haven't already done so, go check it out. thefozzycompany.com. It's a great initiative. They help no-kill shelters, helping distressed homeless animals in need. So great company, great cause. So go check them out at thefozzycompany.com. His question is, says that he is looking into hip and shoulder replacement surgery to the point where walking is really painful, limited, considering stem cell, but he wants to know about collagen supplementation to help heal, build cartilage. Any, logic behind that, and any products you would recommend?
Yeah, I hate to break it, and I kind of went through this myself, so I have some firsthand knowledge about this. It doesn't seem like you're able to counteract the ravages of arthritis in a joint, but you can stall them for sure. Now, when I started having joint problems, actually all the way back to the late 90s, but really in the early 2000s, I got the diagnosis that I really need a shoulder replacement. And I said, but even the doctor said, he goes, I wouldn't get one right now because they're not that good right now. And you're going to have to get it replaced probably in 20 years. And so you're just too young. This is when I was in my mid-30s, early 30s. So what did I do? I did a lot of research, and I realized that, glucosamine, MSM, boron, these are all vital ingredients in joint repair. And I realized that a lot of the reason why our bodies don't repair joint and connective tissue is because of the fact that we don't eat the raw materials necessary to do it. So it's kind of like, imagine if you went to the gym and bodybuilded and you didn't eat any protein in your diet. You just ate carbs and fat. You wouldn't necessarily lose weight, but you wouldn't be putting any muscle on. You wouldn't be repairing muscle that you're breaking down, right? It would be very inefficient. So that's essentially what we do with our joint and connective tissue, because we don't eat ligaments, we don't eat tendons, we don't eat cartilage of animals. We throw that stuff in the garbage, or we give it to the dogs. And unfortunately, we become deficient in that. So I said, I wonder, a lot of people take glucosamine supplements. I said, no one ever says that they do anything. And I said, maybe it's just that people are not taking enough of this stuff. Because if you think about it, if you eat a steak, if you ate the bone on the steak or the cartilage that surrounds the steak, that would be a lot of, that would be multiple grams of connective tissue. And to think you're going to take, 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams of glucosamine a day and think that's enough, probably not enough, especially for bodybuilding. So I started experimenting, and I kept taking more and more glucosamine every day. And I realized that when you hit about 4 grams of glucosamine a day, all of a sudden magic happens. And, glucosamine is not only a component of the connective tissue of our joints, but it's also a precursor to chondroitin sulfate, and it's a precursor to synovial fluid. So you can make synovial fluid indirectly from that, which is the lubricant of the joint. So I started taking that, and I realized also that MSM, which is if you've ever used DMSO and you rubbed it on your shoulders or anything like that on your sore joints, it works really well, but it makes you smell. It makes you smell like you have garlic. Well, the oral form of that is basically MSM, methyl sulfonylmethane. And the reason why that's so important to joint and connective tissue health is because the connective tissue in the joint area has a lot of sulfur residues, and it's really hard to get sulfur from the diet and the food that we eat. So by supplementing with 4 grams of MSM and 4 grams of glucosamine, I found this magic potion, and I threw some boron in for good, a real chelated boron, because boron's also another mineral that's really necessary for joints repair. Vitamin C on top of that, and you got the perfect cocktail. And I created Arthrolyze around that time. A couple of years after that, I was using the ingredients generically, and I said, this is crazy. I got 4 different bottles I got to take. So I put it all in one formula. I just come out with Species. I called it Arthrolyze, and it enabled me to go 18 years, before I needed a shoulder replacement, when I needed one 18 years prior. So it forestalled the inevitable, and it really slowed and retarded the progression of the arthritis. It didn't reverse it, of course, and I knew that probably would never happen, but it allowed me to function normally, or somewhat normally, and not be in chronic pain at least, and work out still. And so, I tell people all the time, the best thing is not to wait till you're in pain, but if you are in pain, start right immediately. 5 pills twice a day of Arthrolyze. It's my Species nutrition product that it's got other things in it now. We have UC2 collagen, which is a patented ingredient that reduces inflammation from the immune system. And it works really well. And believe me, I have a lot of people that will give you testimonials about how well the stuff works. And if you do have an injury, it definitely helps the injury heal better. The key is taking it religiously every single day, 5 pills twice a day, which is 4 grams and 4 grams of the glucosamine and MSM. And I can guarantee you it's going to help. It's not going to get rid of your pain. You're probably going to eventually one day need a replacement, of those joints, but it will delay it quite a bit. And you'll say to yourself, man, I wish I was taking this before all this started. Maybe I would never have gotten to this point. But that's why I try to, I'm an educator out there now, because I don't want people to have to go through all the mistakes that I made and then try to play catch up later down the road. Don't wait. You take a protein supplement every day, or you eat enough protein every day. There's a reason. You should be taking the joint and connective tissue ingredients too, because when you break down muscle in the gym, you break down joint and connective tissue as well.
Let's go to Mike Molinaro. If injectable dbol is dosed at 50 mg per ml, do I need to take it daily and inject a few times a day like the oral version, or just take my dose all at once every day?
To be honest with you, I used to take injectable dbol every other day. And I only did 25 milligrams of it every other day. And I felt like I was taking, 100 milligrams of oral dbol. And I had none of the negative side effects. I had no appetite suppression from it. I felt great on it. I loved injectable dbol. I used the one that was from Dankel Labs. And that stuff was great. And I liked the oral dbol too, but it kind of made me a little nauseous sometimes. And it didn't inhibit my appetite as much as Anadrol did, but it made me feel a little shitty. The injectable never did that. I got bloated on it, but I'm telling you, 25 milligrams, if you get real injectable dbol, 25 milligrams every other day will do the trick. You don't need any more than that.
Thought I'd get a sip of coffee, but you answered that question so quickly. Let's go to Bilal Hamidi. How do you dose lantus starting out? At 25 IUs a day, would you take the shot closer or farther from the Hgh shot?
Well, I recommend that people take growth hormone in the morning. If you're taking more than 4 IUs, and sometimes I have them split it up into morning and like afternoon dose, but lantus they say it's a 24-hour insulin, but it's really not. But lantus they're asking me about, right?
Yeah, lantus.
Yeah. I mean, lantus originally came out as a 24-hour insulin. It really doesn't last 24 hours, so you got to take it twice a day. I usually recommend that people take it right after dinner. It doesn't have to be your last meal, but I usually take it around 8 o'clock at night, and then take it again 8 in the morning, 12 hours later. I would start with 10 IUs per day, to be honest with you, twice a day, and see how that works out for you and see how you feel. And then if your blood sugars are still high, I would keep increasing it by 2 IUs at each dose. So go to 12 and go to 14, 16 until you get your blood sugars under 90 in the morning. The good thing about long-acting insulin is it doesn't lower your blood sugars dramatically. So you could take it and go to sleep. You don't have to worry about it. It's a much safer alternative than using the fast-acting insulin, which you have to calculate everything you're going to eat to the T to make sure that you're taking enough and that you're not taking too much, in which case you're going to drop your blood sugar too much. So much safer. Once again, start low, build over the course of days, chart your blood sugars so that you can see where they're going. As you increase the dose, your blood sugar should go down. And I'm talking mostly the fasting ones in the morning.
Let's go to Katie Martin Daganase. Is it Nutropin or Nutropin premixed Hgh?
Nutropin.
I'm sorry. My Nutropin premixed Hgh was put in the freezer by mistake for one night. Do you think it's still good? It says in the box never to freeze it. My doctor couldn't tell me if it's still good.
Yeah, it's probably not good, but once it defrosts, if the solution is clear and it's not like cloudy with crap floating in it all of a sudden, it might be good still. When it gets that cloudy, like floaty looking, I'm not talking about when you first mix it. I'm talking about like after it's been mixed for a couple hours, the solution is essentially clear. If it all of a sudden has like junk floating in there, it means that the protein itself has become denatured, meaning it's lost the configuration that it was supposed to be locked into. Remember, proteins, hormonal proteins, okay, also known as peptide hormones, need to be in a certain configuration. That's why they need to be kept in a heat or I guess you could say cool, stable environment. If you heat it up too much, what happens is they become denatured. Now, if you freeze them, a lot of times, some of these bigger molecules, like GH is a very convoluted molecule, can sometimes, break apart. Not necessarily. Liquid Nutropin is the only growth hormone, believe it or not, which is sold in a liquid form that's never, ever in a powder form. And it has an added technology to it that they actually, the company Genentech has a patent on, where they suspend it in an acidic water. So the water that they use is slightly acidic. And what it does is they found through their research that it takes this big convoluted GH molecule and makes it contract down on itself. And when it's contracted in this state, it's much more stable. So Whereas if you have a big state, like, that's kind of floating around all over the place, this big convoluted molecule, a lot of times water gets in there and it breaks it apart, and it's very sensitive to heat. So this liquid Nutropin technology, which, like I said, the only reason why you only see it from Genentech companies, because they own a patent on it, is usually a little more resilient. So you might get lucky, and the GH might be good after freezing, but you should never really freeze your GH.
Let's just take a couple of quick hitters regarding, I guess, your own products or services. JJ Hepner wants to know if you're ever going to sell the raw cacao life bars again.
Yeah, I love those cacao bars. I really do. And I noticed in the supermarket now, they actually sell 100% raw cacao.
Yeah.
The problem is that they don't put any flavoring in it. I had a really good stevia-based flavoring system, so they actually were sweet. My kids used to eat them. But you know what? They wanted me to buy like 10,000 at a time. And when you don't have any sugar in a product, the cacao melts real easy. And, it's hot here in Florida. So like I got to buy a separate refrigerator just to store these things in so they don't melt. And then we got to ship them out on dry ice. It was expensive. And so I was willing to do it, because I know I had people that would buy, 100 bars at a time from me, because that's how much they liked them. But the problem was, once again, I didn't have any place to store 10,000 bars at a time. So I just said, you know what, I'm not doing it anymore. Too much. Every refrigerator in my house had cacao full. Everything, you open up the freezer, refrigerator, cacao bars would just fall out all over the place. It was crazy. And until you sold a couple of them, but I just can't do it. It's too much.
Then the other question is from Alexander Ruinkovic. I think he asked this question about a month ago. See if we get an update on this. Any updates, I guess, when you would have your next Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course?
The guys who organize it with me, they've been pestering me, and when are you doing it? Because we were supposed to do it in August. I said, I'm going to do it in August. Now I said, I'll do it in September. And now I get the Olympia coming up, and I'm like, let's just do it after the Olympia. Because you know what? A lot of the bodybuilders who take it are all in contest prep mode now. And you can't functionally take an 8-hour course and pay attention when you're dieting for a competition. So I think if I wait till after the Olympia, or maybe even after nationals, I think that might be a better time, because then everyone's kind of done for the year and they're like, all right, I don't know what to do with myself. I got to increase my education. I'm going to go take Dave's course. I can focus now, because I can sit there and eat while I'm taking the course and listening to him. And I think people get more out of it that way. So I think at this point, I'm just going to wait till probably sometime in November, whether it be, I don't know if we're going to do before Thanksgiving or maybe right after Thanksgiving, first week in December. And that'll probably be a big course, because I know a lot of people have been waiting for the course over the last so many months. Because I think the last one I did was right before I had my surgery, because I wanted to get that in, because I'm like, well, what if I don't make it? So I got to do at least one more. So now that I made it and I'm still here, we'll probably do one right after nationals.
Let's go to Dedgwick. Orals. Should we take orals on show day, considering they might bloat us?
Yeah, I don't think orals. When you wake up in the morning of contest, the day of a contest, you're dry as a bone. So you can't hold water from a steroid you take if you're not drinking any water. So it's irrelevant. That's why I always laugh when people say, "Oh, you can't take this steroid or that steroid because they make you hold water." I'm like, well, if you're taking a diuretic and you're not drinking anything and you're drying it yourself out, you can't hold water. You can't suck the water out of the air into your skin because you're taking, either an injectable that's water retentive, or you're taking an oral that's water retentive. You could eat a whole thing of salt. This thing can be filled with salt. You can guzzle it down. You won't hold an ounce of water until you start drinking water too. So you don't have to worry about it.
Take a couple of more questions. Let's go to Kenny Watts. I want to know everything about how pros hire a guru. How much does it cost? How do you pick a guru? And then interesting one here, because it doesn't get talked about enough, I guess, but the percentage of winnings that a coach will get, I guess, is there a standard rate? Would that be fairly negotiated depending on, I guess, how seasoned a competitor is? The process behind hiring a guru.
Yeah. Well, if you're smart, everyone will hire me because I'm the best. I am the best guru. And that's the end of the question. You call Dave Palumbo up if you're watching this and you say,
Huge
Dave,
285
I need you to do my diet for me. And I don't take any of your prize money. I charge you one fee and you pay it. And that's it. Now, other coaches have other deals. Some guys, I know some coaches, and I'm not going to mention names, that will pay the athlete to work with them because they want to say, I train so-and-so who's in the Olympia. And they're giving that person money just so they can be attached to them. So, there is a marketing aspect to being a diet coach sometimes. The best coaches are not always the guys that have the most wins or that have the best athletes. Okay. They're the best marketers. Now, there are some really good coaches out there that have been doing this a long time and they're very consistently get good results. So yeah, you have to kind of figure out who's going to mesh with you. Number one, what type of a person are you? Like, I get a lot of the people who are really science-oriented people. They want to know, they know that Dave Palumbo is going to tell them why I'm doing this. I'm going to answer them all their questions. I'm going to look at their blood work. I'm going to be the guy who can answer any silly little question or any scientific inquiry they have. And I'm going to tell them why I'm having them do the things they do. There's a lot of people that like that. That's the kind of coach I would want because I'm a question. As soon as I know that I'm doing something and the reason I'm doing it, I feel much more comfortable doing it. There are other people that don't give a rat's butt about why they're doing it. They'll listen to anything you tell them to do. They just want a taskmaster who's going to be there for them and is going to, call them and check on them and make sure they're doing the right thing all the time at every moment. And they just need that real nurturing effect. And then there's other people that they will hire a coach based on marketing. Oh, I went on TikTok. This guy, everyone's saying how great he is. And this guy's always on TikTok, says he's the best coach. So I hired him. So there's really no rhyme, no reason. It's whoever you're comfortable with. And once again, each coach out there, from the, Chris Acetos to Hani Rambas, Chad Nichols, everyone's got their own thing, and some people like some aspect about what that coach is about. Don't hire a coach, though, based on, hey, you know what, that guy trained Mr. Olympia. I need to hire him if I want to win the Olympia, because that might not be the right approach for you, just because that coach has coached someone who's been on the Olympia stage, And, that's about the best advice I can give you. It depends on what your personality is. It depends on who you are and who you mesh with. And you know what? You might go through 3 or 4 coaches before you find the person that you're comfortable with. Some people need a coach. They want the coach to be in the gym where they train, and because they need to work out with that person too. And that's fine too. There's plenty of coaches out there. There's plenty of options. And I always tell people, just go with your gut, whatever your gut is telling you, it seems to be the right answer. Some people are really consumed with health. And they want to compete, but they are so worried that they're going to be doing damage. I get a lot of those people who hire me because they know that if they go for a blood test every 2 weeks, I'll be reading the blood work and telling them if they're okay or not. And I understand it. I can explain it to them that they need that. And that's fine. That's what I enjoy doing. Other coaches can't read blood work that well, it's not that important to them, and they don't want to be bothered with that. And so they won't be a good coach for you. So once again, go with what your gut tells you.
Take one more question from Nathaniel Copperfield. I recently got my blood work done, speaking of blood work, and my total cholesterol was at 344, MGDL, LDL 248, lipoprotein 8 at 183. Creatinine was at 235. Creatinine urine was 308. I'm 200 pounds, fairly lean, 5'8", work out every day, 2 hours cardio plus weights with a break when I'm tired. Follow a medium protein, low carb, medium fat diet, and generally, I think he meant to say ketosis, but it came out as keypads. Given the conflicting info on cholesterol with some doctors, saying cholesterol markers don't play into having negative connotations with heart and stroke, it's more the other health. And with generic doctors wanting to prescribe me Crestor at 10 mg per day, what is your opinion on me taking a statin to lower my cholesterol markers, given that I exercise, eat clean, am in good health? FYI, I've done a cardiac CT and have minimal to no blockages. I'm 40 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I think he answered his own question. He obviously listens to the show. He listens to my advice. And, if you have really high cholesterol, which he does, which would imply that there's a genetic component to that, because he obviously seems like he lives the bodybuilding lifestyle. He probably eats good foods, yet he's excessively high on LDL cholesterol. 248. I mean, you should be under 100. He's 248. That's scary high. So my first response when people tell me that is, should I worry? Is right after that, I don't know. It seems worrisome, right? That number. But do you have any blockages? And he went and got a cardiac CT scan, and they told him he had minimal blockages. I'm assuming he didn't go for the one with contrast, that he probably went for the one with did he indicate if he had the one with contrast or no? Or was it
no, he did not. He did not. No.
Probably was a calcium score. You might want to go for, if he didn't have the one with contrast, you might want to go and get that done too, just to double check. And if those come up clear, then obviously the high cholesterol that you're in your bloodstream is not translating to blockages in your coronary arteries. In that case, I probably wouldn't take a statin. I would probably go the natural route, omega lyes, extra virgin olive oil or macadamia nut oil, 2-3 tablespoons a day. Fiber lyes, which we know binds up LDL cholesterol, pulls it out of the body twice a day. That's my go-to 1-2 punch, so to speak, for the natural remedy. Now, I don't believe it will get his body back to normal, because I don't think he has this, probably a DNA defect somewhere, a mutation somewhere. I bet if he got his DNA tested, and I've been pushing more and more people to do that. I actually sell a DNA testing kit for a company in Canada. We just did a video with Carmen Tuchenik, on that. If you guys want to watch that video, it's a good video. And you can test and see if you have a deficiency in LDL cholesterol metabolism. And once again, you can do everything like I just told you with the vitamins and all the essential fatty acids and the fiber and stuff like that, and bring it down. And what I would recommend he does is once a year, even though it sounds excessive, but it's not, you got to go for a cardiac CT scan and check those coronary arteries, make sure they're not getting blocked off. If they're not, then you're good. If the calcium score is going up and they're seeing progressively more and more calcium being laid down in there and cholesterol, then he might opt for the statin. The statins are not great drugs, but if you have a predisposition and you have no other way of lowering the cholesterol and you're getting side effects from it, you have to do something about it. And unfortunately, that's really the only tool we have in the shed that we know that can lower LDL cholesterol. So to start off right off the bat, I'd probably say no, only because he has minimal blockages. But if those start going up over the next couple of years, I would definitely consider adding a statin for sure.
I just wanted to sneak this one in before we go. Al Michaels, right? The legendary sportscaster.
Sure. Yes.
Did you hear last week? He's doing a podcast, and I don't know how the topic came up, of vegetables, and he claims that he's never eaten a vegetable in his life. And I mean, they're pressing. They're like, so okay, if you see like a carrot, like an innocent looking carrot, and he goes, "There's nothing innocent about it. Carrots are evil." I mean, he was like, you could tell by his facial expression
right.
that he's clearly turned off by vegetables. So first of all, I guess your thoughts on somebody who in his age, probably in his 70s, who's I'm sorry. Here's the other point that he made, like towards the end of the whole thing. He was just like, and I'm living proof that man does not eat man does not need vegetables for sustenance, vegetables to survive. Now, we've heard this sort of a mixed conversation of bodybuilding. Some just are completely anti-vegetables. Some considered it to be just a complete waste of space. Your thoughts on vegetables, general health? Do we need it? And I guess where it fits into bodybuilding.
Right. It's funny because I always thought Al Michaels and you had a very similar voice. When I hear your
but he's got a little more. He's got a touch more of the Kermit the Frog thing going on. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. That's only when he's speaking low. You project. He projects. He's got more of a.
No, he's a legend. He's one of my favorite of all time. Man. But go on.
He's really good. But it's funny. My daughter, the youngest one, will not eat any meat. She's never even eaten a hamburger before. She just. And it's not because I won't let her, the other two eat them. She doesn't like. I even asked her the other day, I said, "Why don't you eat any meat or anything?" She's like, I don't like it. And so what am I supposed to tell her? You have to like it. You know, she doesn't like it. She doesn't eat fish, nothing. You know, she'll eat some fish sticks if they trick her, or maybe like a piece of a hot dog or something like that once in a blue moon, but never has put like a hamburger in her mouth. And so people have weird taste buds. I don't know what causes that. And obviously, you know, Al Michaels must have good genetics, you know, probably has longevity in his family. I don't think the guy's ever really been overweight. Have you ever noticed him, you know?
Not necessarily, no. I mean,
so I think it has more to look. I think diet and nutrition, and I always say this as a joke. I always say I could eat McDonald's every meal of the day, and I probably have no body fat on my body. So I think if your body's utilizing everything that you're consuming, I think you're going to be a lot healthier than you think. And I'm sure he probably takes some vitamins here and there. You know, the sad part about fruits and vegetables, and I eat a lot of veggies, you know, is that our soil is so stripped of good, real minerals and vitamins like it was probably 100 years ago, just because of all the pollution we put into the ground, all the, you know, just the overgrowing of crops and stuff like that, which strips all the nutrients out of it. That we probably don't get as many vitamins and minerals and stuff like that as we think from veggies. And I eat a lot, and I still take a lot of multivitamins and a lot of minerals and stuff like that. Why? Because I know that the fruits and vegetables I'm eating really don't have any significant sources of them in it. So probably more than likely you don't need it, but I think it's the roughage of the actual vegetable itself is good for your digestive tract. And that's what I think you can't really put a quantification on. In other words, the digestive tract isn't meant to be eating baby food all day long. It's meant to have to work and grind things up and push things and contract, because when the intestinal tract works like that, okay, and that's what fiber does that's why I tell people everyone should take a fiber supplement, including Al Michaels. That keeps your colon, it keeps your small intestine healthy. And that's something that will go bad if you don't subject it to enough roughage in the diet. And that's exactly what, you know, we're talking about when we talk about vegetables, roughage. It's just, it makes it harder to push the food through, whereas meat kind of turns to mush when it goes into the stomach. It's called chyme. It doesn't have any substance left. It becomes just like this, like slime, and it runs through your intestinal tract. You absorb some of it, the rest of it you poop out, right? But it doesn't make the intestinal tract have to work because it's just liquid essentially. Whereas veggies have, like, you know, you can chew them up all you want. They still have, you know, sharp edges. They have stuff that doesn't digest and turn to liquid because it's called fiber. Fiber doesn't get absorbed. And so I think in some sense it is necessary, but if like someone like Al, you know, Michaels, who doesn't eat vegetables, did use a fiber supplement, you know, a couple times a day, that would probably compensate. And I don't think that Al would be any more mineral and vitamin deficient from not using, you know, veggies, as long as he's taking, you know, some kind of vitamins, supplements, you know. And the foods we eat do have minerals and vitamins in them too, you know. It's just the veggies have a higher degree of them in it, theoretically. Who knows? You know, until someone actually tests, you know, the latest crop of vegetables at a supermarket, we don't even know what we're getting. But I do think that the roughage makes it better for your colon, and probably much less likely to get colon cancer, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, there's no rules when it comes to nutrition. Just don't get fat. And that's the rule, you know, that's the rule of bodybuilding too, right? You don't want to walk around like a fat slob. But that's the rule in life too. If you walk around fat, with excessive amounts of energy that your body has to store in pockets on your body, which is what body fat is, right? You're going to be unhealthy. We know that leads to increased, you know, risk of cancer, heart disease, chronic degenerative diseases, dementia. It's a good reason not to walk around overweight. You know, I'm talking about, when I say overweight, I'm not talking about bodybuilders in their off season. I'm talking about people who are obese, over 20-25% body fat. So stay lean. That's my advice.
And on that note, that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Right now on the channel, the aforementioned episode of After Hours with, I don't want to say cameo, but full-on appearances by Greg Valentino. I'm sorry, Jimmy the Bull, Lee Priest, and Greg Valentino together. Obviously, Greg Valentino is a staple of the show, but that episode live right now. Of course, all new episodes of the After Hours podcast. Lee Priest and Jimmy the Bull's brand new show, The Confessional. We did an interview with Sergio Oliva Jr. at the Dubai Pro a couple of weeks ago. So that is on the channel. Sergio telling us about how he's going to be moving to Spain, Marbella, Spain, to train with Dorian Yates. So exciting. Yeah. And then so, he's prepping for the 2024 Arnold Classic. That's the next time we're going to see him on stage. So all that and more right now on the channel. If you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our show segments. Obviously, preview segment galore for the 2023 Olympia over the course of the next 3 weeks. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, especially on this show where we have seen such a spike in the overall amount of questions, input, feedback, we're very appreciative of your support on this show, all our shows, and throughout the course of the year. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.